All right, beautiful people of Earth. It is a Wednesday morning. Look, there's producer Ryan.
Hey,
Walked in to join us. He's wearing a t-shirt. I mean, what kind of madness? What madness is this? You with a t-shirt on, huh? What's going on with you?
I wanted to make sure our sound worked this time.
No. Your sound is perfect, but
It's great.
But the t-shirt, you still haven't answered me.
The t-shirt. I'm tired of wearing these big jackets, so I wear the jackets outside, and then when I come inside, I take the jackets off.
You know, if somebody was like watching us right now, I'm in a jacket, you're in a jersey,
Yep.
and Ryan's in a t-shirt. It's kind
They
of
would say that it says something's not right.
yeah. Like,
Either Gareth
what's the temperature
and
actually
and Lebang have got problems, or Ryan is completely immune to the cold.
Yeah, and it's giving more like the latter.
What do you think?
It's not as cold as what it was. It's like it's a lot warmer now, so it's not too bad.
Well,
Maybe
Yeah.
at some point, but at 6 a.m. still a bit nippy.
Yeah,
A little
maybe.
bit nippy.
there was a lot of mist out there today.
Ooh.
I was
Mm.
driving through some pretty thick mist or fog. I'm not even sure what the difference is. Is there a difference between mist and fog?
Probably like thickness. I feel like fog is probably
fog is-
thicker and heavier, and then mist is more like a mist, but you can
Well,
still sort of
Do you
see.
like living on high altitude?
No, I'm near
No.
a river, so the
So it sinks.
Mm.
yeah, so all that heavy air sinks.
Right.
But it's not so bad in summer, obviously. In winter, it seems like there's some mornings where there's a lot of that mist. In fact, I think Sunday was a bit like that.
Yeah.
But who wants to talk about the weather? I mean, for God's sake, let's
Yeah.
talk about the fact that we put in carpeting in the studio.
Yes.
And there's quite a strong glue smell. Well, yesterday was much worse, but I was worried about doing today's show in here because I thought we'd be, after 15 minutes, high.
Well,
High as can be.
Is
I
that
mean,
a problem?
if the show takes a turn, we know why.
Yeah.
We've put the disclaimer out there now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody loved yesterday's show with Rian. Ricky
it's
says, "How will
awesome.
Cliff Central be able to top yesterday's show?"
We can't.
Morning, everybody. What a show yesterday, says Viasan.
It was
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you.
It was lovely.
You know what? First of all, I just got to say that this is really not any of my work. This is the producers doing an amazing job because I love the people that they've brought in so far. I mean, we had Jonathan Witt on the first day, which was like a soft landing because he's always good fun and he's got
Mhm.
so much
Yeah.
to say about stuff. And then Fresh, who's just fantastic in every
Sure.
way, and Rian, who's also amazing. So, I mean, the pressure's on.
Oh yeah.
You guys drop the ball, and there will be one day. I know there's going to be a day.
Yeah.
I'm just preparing myself where they're going to go like, "Oh, you excited?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, why'd you have to invite that person?"
Can I
gonna
tell
happen,
you?
right?
It takes more than one phone call to organize these guests.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a
lot of work.
nightmare.
It's like
It's a lot.
you got to invest in it, and you
Mm.
kind of got to like warm up to the people,
Mhm.
and then once they're on board, then so now we're at this point where we had Rian yesterday, and that's okay, cool.
No, you
Now
gotta keep at it.
who's on
Yeah.
next week?
You're only as good as your last rodeo, right?
That's-
So
I
now
mean, that's
the
it.
pressure is
So-
truly on.
Are you looking at like really famous international guests as well?
We're not allowed to tell Gareth anything.
Yeah, no.
Look at him
it's-
trying to find out who
Come
the
on.
surprise guests are.
I'm not
Sorry.
gonna spoil it. You
No.
know, for example, on the first day, I didn't tell you this, but Jonathan Witt joined our Wi-Fi network, and I shared a password, so I knew it was him.
Oh,
I knew you'd been
damn
after,
it.
I knew you'd been after Fresh. I gave you Fresh's number, you idiots.
No, I know.
And- And I was on Rian's show, and then I came to a meeting here, and we were talking about planning the next show. And I said, "Why don't you get him as a surprise guest?" And you all went. So I knew like that's going to
Gareth.
happen. So
No.
Please
it's
keep
not-
us in
none
the
of it's-
dark
None
about.
of it's really
No.
been a surprise, but
right.
it doesn't matter. It's not about surprising me. It's about surprising everybody who's listening. That's
Well,
the cool thing.
I think it's a surprise for you on the day, right? Because
yeah. It is. No, it is.
because as much as like these names have been thrown out, but I mean, Fresh, I've been working on for a long time. I wanted him on last year, but he was on a Botswana tour. I don't remember what he was doing, but he wanted to come on, but he was so busy, and so he had a whole lot going on in his schedule. And so when something opened up, I had to get Rena involved.
Of course.
You have to
No
get really
one-
involved for
Got to get
everything.
the big guns.
Yeah.
No one says no to Rena, which
That's
is
it.
she's like the next level. If I need help, then I'm like, okay, Rena, can you please take us through? But I mean, he was awesome. He came through and
Oh, he's such a good guy.
super
Yeah.
professional. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, he hadn't slept.
He hadn't
said,
slept
for
the
like
whole night.
48 hours.
where did he drive from?
Can't
He
remember.
drove from somewhere
Far,
far.
far
He drove
away.
through the night
Mm.
just to get
Mm.
here, and then he still went to work afterwards. I mean, Professionals, they
I'll
come.
tell you what, we got Lebang here and we've got Ryan here today. That's a surprise too.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Don't complain about us being boring or backsliding here on this show. We're not doing that. Mapelo says, I like the cloud in the studio. Oh, yeah. Look at this.
Oh, my pillow. Thank you.
So let me show you. So we're upgrading our studio slightly. So take a look here. I'm just going to show you.
Slowly.
If I show you the ceiling here,
Ooh.
see those clouds? Look at that.
Adding some
clouds.
nuggets.
See? Isn't that
Very
cool?
nice.
How pretty.
That's nice. All right, so there we've got that, and then we've got our new carpets. So I wonder if can I show you that
Yeah,
there
you can
behind
show.
Lebang there?
There they are.
So
Carpets.
we're slowly upgrading things here. We don't want to give you a shitty product. You know,
Yeah.
we want this to be the best it could possibly be. Well done for spotting that, Mapelo. Rian is the funny friend everyone wants in their group. Well, I can tell you something. Again, just to be a bit nostalgic, going back to varsity. And when I was there and I met Rian and I met these other friends of mine who I've remained friends with since then. These are the people who they always say really smart, funny, interesting things all the time. And you have to keep your game on that level. And I love that. It forces you to be, the best you can be instead of just being ordinary.
Exactly.
So I think that's a very good point that you say everyone wants someone like that in their group. That's
I also
true.
feel like that quality of person is just hard to come around these
Oh,
days. Like that kind of person is just it's older and older. And if you find that person like the younger generation, it's like 1 in every maybe 20 or 30, because more and more people are just consuming the same thing, having the same opinions on the same things, and just rinse and repeat.
Can I just say I love the hair?
Oh, thank you, Gareth. Stop.
I mean, we struggled to get an angle that could fit the whole,
we did.
the
It
whole
took us a
hairstyle
while.
in, but,
It took us
we
a
like
while.
it, we like it.
I think I'm in my Erica Badu era.
I love it.
I'm in that vibe. That's the energy.
Bit of old school Motown going on there as well.
Yeah. All I need is like the dress and like a bit of red lipstick, and I'm good to go.
And some dance moves behind the microphone.
Oh, no, those are easy.
Honey, love, don't come easy. That's the kind of shit you need. Okay. So Rian Sean Keknet has become one of my favorites. Last night he had 2 trans people on. Listen, that guy has had the most incredible guests as well. I don't know how he finds them.
I mean, he's got really good producers, it seems, and him as well. So like that collaboration of just finding the right people is definitely working.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't come across anyone who could tell stories like that. Like it reminds me of back in the days when I used to go camping with my family.
Yeah.
And I used to gather around a fire and just tell these crazy stories. No one had phones out. It was just all these stories.
It's a funny thing. It's like again, I always find these. Like I was looking at one of these people in the gym the other day, one of these worms, these old vet worms. And I looked at the Zulu guy standing next to him, and like they have the same shape. Often I see these parallels between like particularly Zulu and Afrikaans people.
Yeah.
Like they have very similar like cultural things. Obviously, I don't know where they come from because obviously there's a history there too. But there's a funny thing too about like telling stories. Like there's these old Zulu elders who tell these stories, and these old Afrikaans men who tell these stories, and they do these things around the fire.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that, whether you're like from Ulundi or whether you're from Krugersdorp.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing that these guys share, and being able to tell those stories. I mean, there used to be these TV shows which I hated as a child, where they'd have these old Afrikaans men sitting there telling stories, but they were hilarious. If I'd bothered to listen to them, I might have learned something.
Storytelling like that, again, it's just another thing that you don't come across often anymore. Like when I was watching him yesterday, I was like working and listening in the background. I literally stopped my work just to like really like get involved. I was like, whoa, I want to know what happened in Mexico. Tell me more. I felt like I was there. What they say in radio about what's the thing of the mind?
Theater of the mind.
The theater of the mind. He literally 101. He took me back yesterday into why I fell in love with this type of medium in the first place. It's exactly that. I can relay an experience that I had to you, but I can bring you on that journey. It's such a special thing.
I hate to spoil that very lovely and very, very meaningful monologue that you were on there. But Simon says, lovely hair, Kgosana, because you're always falling for scams. So Kgosana changed to Kgosana. Damn it, love me a black woman. So there's some quality comments.
Kgosana, guys. I do not endorse that one. You can just leave it in the drafts.
I see you still got the Cliff Central nails going.
I do.
I love it.
Look at that.
I love it. That's very cool. Very
Yeah.
nice.
That's gonna be a
Nice.
while. That's gonna be a while. Mercy saw them yesterday, and she's like, "Did Cliff Central pay for those nails?" I was like, no.
Yeah, we're running around paying for nails
Right?
for Lebang. Yeah, sure. All right, so what do we have to get into today? Let's take a look at some of the things that are happening in the world because we need to be paying attention, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
So where shall we begin? What is on your mind this morning, Ryan? You've been busy this week. You've been running around. What's happening?
What's on my mind is it's annoying me that everybody's complaining about Elon Musk changing Twitter to X.
All right, what is this all about? Is this him bringing his companies in line because he's got SpaceX and he's got a bunch of other X companies and this is becoming another X company? So it's corporate imaging, in which case, who cares?
Yeah.
He's trying to make, he calls it X, the everything app. He's trying to make one app that I guess is social media, but also
the Chinese tried that with WeChat.
With WeChat,
Yeah.
and it
No.
kind of didn't.
Oh, well, I mean,
it
in
worked for
China it
them.
works.
Yeah, it worked for
In
them.
China
yeah.
it works properly, but I
Didn't
mean,
work.
Mm.
Not the
I
rest
don't
of the
know.
world.
Everyone's like, oh, they're doing the thing. I'm gonna leave, and I'm like, you said this like 3 months ago. Like, get
Yeah.
off here already.
But
Go to Threads, but Threads even dead.
Threads
like,
is dead.
no,
It's-
look, let's
It's
not lie.
so bad.
It was nice for those first 4 days. We had fun chatting to people we hadn't seen in a while, and now I kind of just forget about Threads. I'm always
I
like,
have
oh
not.
shit.
Okay, so
Threads.
I remember Simpiwe saying to me on the Friday because they launched it on the Thursday, and I went on and
Mm.
opened an account and all that shit. And she was like, "Oh, this is really like that's the first time you've been
Proactive.
ahead of the curve."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, okay, well, maybe it's a good thing." I haven't been on since then. I haven't even opened the app. I haven't checked it. I don't know who's following me. I don't know who I'm
Yeah.
following. I don't care. I'm over Threads already. It's done.
It was a fad.
Right.
It's
It's done.
not even a fad. It was like a fad.
It's kind of like
It's
when
done.
Facebook first launched, and
Mm.
everybody was just typing out everything they were thinking and like posting
Well,
all of the pictures and
Yeah.
everything.
look
they
at
could.
this. This is absolutely terrifying. The Simpsons, which obviously is a TV show that's been going since, what is it, the 90s?
Yeah.
The Simpsons predicted everything. Remember that
Oh.
Donald Trump coming down the elevator?
Yes.
Escalator, sorry.
Escalator. Yeah.
And running for president.
Mm.
They predicted everything.
They predicted the helicopter crash.
everything.
Kobe. They've
All
predicted
kinds of things.
like all sorts of things.
Did they
And look
predict
at this.
Kobe as well?
Bro,
Really?
yes, right down to the
I didn't
the
know they
plane
predicted
crash.
Kobe.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Wow.
Here's a scary thought. This is from The Simpsons. There's Homer J. Simpson. Are you supposed to eat those stickers and apples? I'm guessing yes.
That's
And look-
clearly one of his thoughts.
Look at the circle around that little app at the bottom. There's the call app, the email app. There's something else there.
what could that be?
Angas, but
Look,
X. Look at X.
if this is true,
Mhm.
of which it most likely can be, considering their track record as the Simpsons show,
Yep.
then what's actually going on there? We need to investigate.
I-
Somebody there's time traveling.
I think it's what's it, Matt Groening or
Yeah.
Matt Groening.
We
That
need-
guy
we need
must
to bring
be.
him
He's
for
a time traveler.
questioning,
He's
or
a
like-
He
time,
has to be.
definitely a time traveler.
He is.
There's no two ways about it.
Because how? What are the odds? I know.
and then you
Time
just
travel.
make like you go and you make a world where you can predict everything, but no one knows it yet. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it sounds like Heroes. Do you remember Heroes?
Yes,
One
I
of the
do
first
actually. It
heroes
was on
was so good.
SABC2 or something.
It was so good. One of the OGs.
Okay, here's a good question. I'm with Ryan. Sorry, comment. I'm with Ryan on that. Been saying this for years and years. Basically, it's WeChat that he wants.
Mm,
Social media, payment, online market, etc., all in one. Well, he's
mm.
not going to get what he wants because it's what the consumer wants, and we don't want one app to do everything, do we?
Do we not
Well,
want one app to do
I
everything?
mean,
One app to rule them all.
Look, I think on paper it's scary to give them all this power. Like, I make payments through you, I do
Yeah.
everything. That part is scary. However, where's the convenience in that? It's probably there. Like the idea of only going to one place, I'm not mad at it. Because
Yeah.
right now we have to go to like 12 different places daily.
But they do different things. You know, for
Yes.
example, I don't really use Facebook and Twitter anymore.
Mm.
I use Instagram. It's only fun left in my app list.
Well, not as
I
much.
prefer
yeah.
Twitter.
I don't even use mail on my phone. I refuse to.
I
unless
post
it's an
on Instagram
emergency.
because like a lot of my friends are on Instagram.
Yeah,
Not
that's the
many
same
of
for
my
me.
friends on
I
Twitter.
use-
I
I
use
use all of
Twitter
them.
just to yeah.
I guess Facebook right now is more of like, you know, that
Very old people.
your first person you got into a
No, it's-
relationship
It's
with that
old people.
you can't like let go of because you've known them for that long and you still see them every 10
No, you
years
have
at
to
these.
invite them to things.
You have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
invite them every now. You can't delete Facebook. It's that person, right? But as far as like interaction and usage, I think Instagram is definitely still the last one, and TikTok. Everything
Oh,
else.
Ryan, it looks like we've been fooled.
Have we been fooled?
JP says, spoiler alert, according to Twitter's fact checking, this was edited to add to the Simpsons hype.
No.
Thanks, JP. You must be fun at parties.
Well, I'll tell you what, they've predicted enough though to be worth watching.
Yeah.
Someone's going to monitor that Matt Groening guy and just see where he is and what he's up to.
I'd love to have him on a podcast just to hear his thoughts about.
He's probably
things.
not allowed to talk. He's probably under FBI surveillance 24/7.
Thing is, Facebook is for me at the moment. It's so boring because right now it's just updating me on who's engaged,
And
having
birthdays,
babies, and who's buying houses.
It's
and
very good
birthdays.
for birthdays. If I didn't have Facebook, I wouldn't be wishing anybody happy birthday. That's kind of one of the purposes I still have.
Okay, so I like doing the happy birthday thing on Facebook. It is one of the only things that Facebook's good for.
It's very
and
good
I'll
for
tell you
that.
why, because there are a lot of people who I don't see very often, right? And it's just a way to keep in touch with people on an annual basis. I send them a happy birthday. I'm pretty good at it. Some days I forget, and then I have to go back, and if I feel like it, I'll go, oh, sorry, happy birthday for yesterday.
Sure.
But I find it's a really good way of just keeping in touch with people.
No, it definitely is.
It's not the worst thing. I think it's good to do that. I think it's good to have some place where you can just check in, like, hi, how you doing?
How's it going?
A bit of humility, if you will.
And people appreciate it. Like, I think, for people who, this is another good thing about Facebook and birthdays, and it's probably the only time I use it, is I'll check it maybe once a day or every third day or whatever. But I'll do the happy birthdays and then I'm out. I don't go into the feed or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it is useful. Like if you are wishing someone happy birthday for the third time and they haven't ever replied or acknowledged,
then stop.
Then it's time to like delete friend, right? So it helps you to clear out crap.
Yeah.
Because
do like an audit of like real people.
That's it.
Sure.
Audit. A people audit.
A people audit. A PA.
There we go.
Definitely. You know where I'm spending maybe too much time these days? It's
what?
LinkedIn.
Are you?
Yo, guys, it's hectic there. Hey, it's like a whole different world. Like people are just always like talking shop, and
it's very
people
serious. Sam.
Different. No, it's not as serious. You know what it is? It's interesting because it's opinions on things that are happening in the world, but it's from credible-ish people. So, well, for me, it's more advertising and marketing. And for example, they've been breaking down the Barbie advertising and the marketing, and the way that they break it down is of interest to me.
No, of course.
So I'm just like, that's where it's at. People look very different on LinkedIn, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
You'll see someone on
Whoa
Instagram and they're like in bikinis and shit, and then you see her in a very
they're like
smart little,
I'm like,
lawyer profile.
Is that you? And this is always it. It's the hands across the arms like that, and the cheesy smile. That's always it.
No, but there's this new app. I don't know if you've seen now. You can search it generates a LinkedIn profile picture so you upload your photos and it takes an AI image of your face and it puts it in a suit or something. It makes it look professional.
I heard about that app, but another thing I heard is that there's T's and C's in that app that nobody's reading. And apparently in the T's and C's, once you use the app, you have signed off all the rights to whatever images are captured. They can do whatever they want. What's it called? Rigme or Rigma, something like that.
So these AI generating apps, when you upload pictures to them, like there was that little trend that went around a while back. I don't know if you remember
the profile pictures.
Yeah, where everyone would upload their pictures and they would like have different versions, AI versions. And it's basically
you're just selling it states. We've got all rights to these images.
One of the other things that I've started noticing is that, and this really irritates me, it's really none of my business, and I'm not a gossiper, but this is one of those things that I want to know. Have you seen when someone dies and people start posting their like rest in peace messages on their Facebook profile? But then no one ever says what happened to them.
Gareth.
No, but I want to know. Like, what was it? A car accident? Was it a heart attack?
Then comment and say what happened.
No, because that's
you can't
do that. That's very rude. No, but I want to know. Like, Janine is no longer there. So you're like,
what happened? Shit,
I didn't know Janine died. And you see, it was like back in March of last year. Or was it? What did Gene?
I still have some accounts of friends who've passed that are still on my Facebook.
Why don't you just get rid of them?
No, I also do.
Because they were a part of my life at one point.
So what? They're not there anymore.
I don't get rid of them just because I'm not on Facebook that much to go through my friends list and like delete.
Okay, wait.
Just keep it moving.
Gareth, with this kind of thinking,
we must know. Listen, even Congo Chris is with me. We've got to know how you died.
But you guys like things.
Someone in the family, or they've got to explain. They've got to give a paragraph.
You want a statement?
No, but can I tell you?
Well, he was washing windows on a high-rise building in Santon.
And
then the rope snapped. And,
Therefore.
And he fell 14 floors and splattered on the ground. That is how he got. That's him. That's why he's not around anymore.
News spreads like wildfire about deaths, though. Like, you just tell one person, it flies out the window. I've found out from, a couple of friends of mine of other people who have passed, but it comes from like overseas. It spreads so quickly, like you can't control it. It's like a wildfire.
No, like these days, it's not even like an announcement. You just see on people's WhatsApp statuses like broken hearts. When I see broken hearts, like zoop, 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 zoop,
I'm like, someone's dead, right?
Yeah, but it's also like traumatic because like in the past 3 years, I've lost so many people. I'm always like, oh crap, who is it this time?
Do you remember on BBM with the recent updates? And then you'd update just.
I never had BBM. Man.
Really?
BlackBerry. You don't remember that 60 rand a month live?
That was crazy.
I skipped right
Free
over that
internet
one.
for 60 rand a month.
60 rand.
I never went on. I was never on Mixit. I was never on BBM.
Okay, no ways. Mixit, you missed out.
I managed to avoid those both. They were shit.
Were you on like MSN or like?
No, I had a Nokia phone for the longest time, and then went straight from that to iPhone.
Oh wait, this actually brings me back to my question I wanted to ask you earlier. With the whole removing friends off Facebook thing, do you delete numbers?
Yeah, so dead people I do.
Hectic.
That's Gareth.
Yo.
No, well, what do you go? Because then you're gonna, I don't know. Maybe they're on a list or something, and
it gets reassigned.
And then it gets reassigned to someone else.
The
funniest thing happened. I've got a friend in New York, and he changed his number, but his old number is now this Puerto Rican woman. So. First thing is,
why is that funny?
Because I know where it's going. I know where it's going.
So this friend of mine, he gives me the new number, but I don't tell another friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours. So he goes, Jesus, what's going on in this guy's profile picture? He looks like a Puerto Rican woman. Do you think he's gone trans? Right?
Yeah.
Is he now a trans gender?
Yeah.
So we phone her.
Oh my word!
And now he's expecting to see our friend, but I know it's already a Puerto Rican. Right. So, I mean, we were a bit drunk. So we're both like, "Hey, dude, how are you?" And this woman comes out, "What do you want? Why are you calling me? What are you calling me? What? Hey, how are you?" Then eventually she gets into it. So I send the friend on his new number screenshots of us calling this other woman.
Yeah.
I'm like, "We didn't know you'd become a woman. It's very exciting." So he replies and says, "Oh yeah, I changed my number, blah." I said, "I know, that's why I'm sending this in your new number." So he goes, No problem. Goes quiet for a week or two. Then he and his wife add this woman to a group.
What?
Her name is Mary, okay? Now she's been added to a group.
Oh my gosh.
And now she's like, "Please take me off this group. I got this number. I've tried to explain that it used to belong to someone else." And he's like, "Oh, Mary, you look so pretty." And the wife is like, "I love your hair, Mary." They've added her to this group.
Leave Mary alone.
Of like 10 people. Poor Mary is now, and I feel like we're partly responsible.
Yeah, no, this sounds like a you guys' thing.
Should have just left it alone.
And who has that much time? You guys have time.
No, you see,
it's hilarious. There's some Puerto Rican woman in New York who's got a whole bunch of friends she didn't know she had.
I mean, my friend changed his number, and so I called this number, and so. Like, I always call my friends by some of their nicknames. So I called him and I was like, and as he picked up, and I thought he was putting on like an accent because it sounded like a black accent when he picked up. And I was like, Kraken Slayer, because that's what he used to call him in high school. And then this guy's like, fuck off.
He didn't know who you were.
What?
Oh.
And then I called him back and he tells me, and so I phoned his mother and I'm like, listen.
Now you're concerned.
I'm concerned. I'm like, maybe his phone was stolen or he's just playing games with me. And so she says, "No, you got a new number." I was like, "Oh, when was he going to tell me?" She's like, "No, don't worry, I'll send it to you."
So this was a totally random person that you
this is a random person. He just told me to piss her right off. Like,
wow. But that happens a lot.
But nobody told me he changed the number. I was
that
like,
really happens a lot.
Does
like,
happen.
If you were using a number for a very long time and then like you suddenly aren't using it, I don't think they should be allowed to reassign it. The 082s and the 083s.
Yeah, those are you've got it.
Just
Legacy
let them
numbers.
go.
Legacy
Yeah,
numbers.
leave them alone. Only
So-
these new ones you can, start to change around. But
A really funny thing happened it was a while ago. I was in a meeting with a whole bunch of people, and my phone rang, and it was a number I didn't know. And when it's when it's a private number, a number I don't know, then I usually ignore it. But in this case, I decided to answer it. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, "Who are you?" Right? Because I felt like just answering it like an idiot. And it was Jeff Radebe, minister in the presidency at the time, right?
Oh,
He's like, we need you to MC this thing for what? Look, I ended up not doing it, but like I felt so stupid because
timing
of all the people. I mean, like a government minister. Not that I think like Jeff Radebe doesn't have a sense of humor or he was a particularly bad minister or any of that shit. But the 1 minute you should be serious about something. Like, hello. I could have just.
I would have hung up. I would have been
Hello.
like, doop, and then called back and said, sorry about that. There was like some, I honestly, I would not have taken responsibility for any of that behavior. Because what is that?
Well, I think he did. He laughed a little bit. But he probably tells people I'm completely insane.
Was the laugh
like I called this motherfucker and he just,
yeah, acted like an idiot.
He's obviously got very low IQ.
Or that could be the plug to your next gig. I mean, they could be like, oh, this is funny.
Here we go. Tracy says, my son's teacher, whenever he gets a spam call on his phone, he gets one of the kids in the class to answer. One whose voice hasn't dropped yet. It works like a charm.
Jeez, Louise.
Hello.
Is that allowed?
Oh, that's funny.
But that's what apps like Truecaller come in. So Truecaller can save you from answering bullshit numbers.
I know.
And they can always tell you,
I've got Truecaller, but sometimes it doesn't. It's not always.
Yes, but you have to upgrade to the premium one.
But
that's the trick.
More money I must spend.
Yes, according to my mom, it's changed her life.
You think it works?
Well, according to her, I wouldn't do it, but she lives by it. She goes, when these teleprompters call me, I don't answer. I'm like, why? She goes, Truecaller.
Teleprompters.
Yeah, yes, because Truecaller literally says spam. Maybe I should get it actually.
Teleprompters.
No, but it's clever because they make one contact with all the numbers listed. So what I do now is I got the app in the beginning and it's created that profile. And so now whenever I come across people who won't leave me alone, I throw them into the spam folder and then it comes up as spam.
I got this gay friend who names all the hot guys he meets on his phone. Hot guy 1, hot guy 2, but he doesn't know which one is which.
Oh my gosh, what year is it?
Oh, wow.
This is what he does. And then he'll put the dates he met them and the place he met them. But,
oh my gosh.
But somehow he remembers who's who.
So when he speaks to them or when they have
I don't know if he speaks to them or if he WhatsApps them or whatever, but he's like, hot guy number 1, 26th of July, Johannesburg.
Wow. This
giving high school.
That's ridiculous.
This reminds me of yesterday's show where they were talking about the Chris Fiss and Jan Hare and
Jan Hare.
Jan Hare.
I've got to go to Jan Hare today.
Satellite.
Don't you think I really got to get a haircut? My hair's far too long.
Do you have a dedicated barber that's been doing your hair for ever?
I'm so disloyal.
Are you a hair whore?
I'm a hair whore.
Oh no!
Because I mean that's kind of like one of your signature things.
Not at all.
I figured maybe you have one barber. That's been doing it.
In December last year, about a week before Christmas. I wasn't going to come schlepping all the way through to where I usually would go here in Joburg. I just go to like whatever sorbet's open, sorbet man, and they give you the barber treatment, and it's good enough for me. And I just say to them, just trim a little bit off wherever. And they know what to do. They can't go too short on the side and the back, though, because otherwise they look like a Nazi.
That's so sad, Gareth. You're missing out on like a personal relationship.
I don't want to. I've got enough personal relationships. Look at this. I have to come and chat to people every day in the show. I got enough chat. By the time I go to the hairdresser, you know what I want? I want a haircut.
You just want a haircut and you're like, fuck off.
That's quick and short and sharp and easy.
There's something so precious about one person who's watched your hair grow and come and go.
It's such a girl thing to say.
It's not. No.
That is a girl thing.
It really
do you go to the same?
So I do go to the same
men.
guy's name's Regan, and we talk football every time I go there.
Him
and I support Chelsea, and so every 3
I
weeks.
can imagine nothing worse than that being forced, strong-armed into a conversation about football.
How would Regan feel if you went to somebody else, Ryan? Tell us.
To be honest, I don't think he would care, but like, it's just funny because every time I go there.
Right. So usually I go, and if there's a guy called Lorenzo, he's from the south of Joburg, and he comes through every time to either Morningside or wherever.
Yeah,
and I'll go to him, but I just before that, in December, I went to an Algerian barber.
Okay.
But you know the one with the like red and blue
Oh, that thing,
yeah,
the
it goes
actual
outside.
barbershop thing
And
outside.
no English,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No English. So
Those
I'm
are
like,
the best haircuts.
just trim a little bit. I mean, they're quick. You could be in and out of there in 12 minutes, which is bloody fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I love efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So I sit down, and he went very short. I mean, I had the shortest haircut I've had in a long time, but he knew what he was doing. And I appreciate someone who doesn't want to talk to me. I don't want to have a chat. Stop and chat.
It's a big part of the process.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of my male
No.
friends, a lot of my guy friends will tell me this is my dedicated barber. I only go to him. If he's not available, I'd rather not cut my hair because I'd feel like I'm cheating on him. They've got that kind of relationship. It really isn't a woman thing only.
And I mean, before this, I used to go to a girl named Chloe for a little while as well. So it's just easier.
You're not loyal.
You're
not loyal
Yeah,
either.
you're giving hair whore. You're giving hair.
No, there's a few.
I am not loyal. I will. Frankly, if they opened up a hairdresser, in fact, there is one here.
There is one.
There is.
I'm going to go to this one now.
Just go there.
I'll
Just
go there.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to go today. There's one right up the road. I'm going to go. After entropy has run its course and the universe has died, a heat death, and the earth has been swallowed by a black hole, Gareth's hair will remain.
Yeah. That's what I said. It's a signature thing. That's why I thought maybe you had like.
Gord always says it's like Lego hair. You just clip it on.
Can I ask, when you were doing idols, right?
Yeah.
Did you have like a stylist that would come in and do it, or did you have to do your own hair?
So I was so lazy, and so was Randall. We used to have the woman who did all the makeup and hair for the contestants, because they used to have pretty wild like hairstyles and things, because for stage, right?
Showbiz, yeah.
But we would say to her, "Please, can you cut our hair at the same time?" Just like a little,
just quickly,
and then
trim off the top.
every week you'd get like a trim or whatever, and it was just one of the perks of being on the show. So we would sit there and she would just do it, and she was terrific.
Awesome.
No, we didn't have to think about it. See, I think it is a girl thing to be loyal to a hairdresser.
Not.
I do. I think it is.
I promise you, it is not.
I promise you, most men.
A girl thing.
Most men don't give two shits.
This is not the truth, though.
I don't think. Listen, first of all, most guys in their 30s and 40s who still have hair are fortunate, because there are a lot of guys who don't.
Sure.
I got friends who are starting to look like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. Okay. Yeah, I know. That's a great look. And I know some guys who've even had the hair transplant, the plugs, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I've got some friends who've done that.
It's sounding like a white person thing. So
No,
on behalf of
I see these black guys in the gym like shaving their heads totally shiny.
Look at Simon Says' comment. He says, I've got one barber. Black people are loyal. At mine, we even have alcohol to easily spend 2 or 3 hours there laughing and talking. I completely agree.
I've seen everybody hates
Simon
Chris.
Says is a trans woman.
Come on, Gareth.
I've seen everybody hates Chris, and those barbershops look so much fun.
It's a vibe. Like you build there, you go and you chat. It's a whole thing. It really is it's a thing.
All right. Well, maybe this is just a me thing. I'm not loyal, and I don't make any excuses. I don't expect anyone to give me a haircut for free.
Sure.
I pay, and I get in and I get out. And I feel so much better after a good haircut. In fact, that is what I need. I'm going to go today.
Go today and go up here. Support them.
I will pay a hairdresser extra not to talk to me. The worst is when they find out I'm a vet and they start talking about their dogs. And I'll just say I'm an accountant.
What, accountant's not that interesting?
KB says, I bought myself one of those Weil clippers 5 years ago, and I chiscop myself every week.
Nice.
But you see, doing your own...
It's difficult.
That's dodge. Hey?
Especially like
it's dodge.
I try
That's
to.
hard.
I
you
try
could
to do
really
the beard
fuck that
thing,
up.
right? Yeah,
no,
you can.
no, but it's possible. You can do it.
No, you can. Oh, yeah.
You can do.
But
You
then
just
you might
need
as
a
well just be
mirror.
a
And then
hairdresser.
goes,
Like,
Yeah, but if you can have it the same length the whole way around.
it's cheese cop. You're taking everything
yeah,
off.
okay. But I'm saying, like, for example, for me, I do the whole beard thing,
Yeah.
and so I can keep it like looking okay for a couple of weeks, but then there's a point where I need to get it like.
How much do you pay for a
restructured.
haircut?
Oh, it's frozen, but about $350.
Ryan.
How much do you pay?
Come on, it's me. I literally pay like minimum $600 because I'm always doing like hairstyles and stuff.
I'm like cheaper even than Ryan.
Yeah, but $350 for
No,
a
but
haircut.
it's a beard trim. Hair.
Do they wash it and steam
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and like
it's the
braid
whole-
it and knot it?
and they do the whole like shaving thing.
do you go to
lot of work.
Legends?
No,
Oh.
I go to a place called Beard Boys.
It's a lot of work. Oh, let me remind you. This is an interesting episode of Beyond Madness. So we've spoken to, in fact, we had an event here at Cliff Central with a bunch of journalists who are facing hostility and threats in more countries than ever before, according to the world's Press Freedom Index. An annual report published by Reporters Without Borders says that the potential mental health consequences of this type of job. Why am I getting feedback?
I don't know.
Let me just see if I kill those. 1, 2. There we go. It's better. I think it's your hair. I'm telling you. Journalists are facing threats and hostility in more countries than ever before. And according to this year's World Press Freedom Index, an annual report published by Reporters Without Borders, they are facing all kinds of potential mental health consequences in the job of journalism. I mean, you can imagine going into war zones and all of that stuff. I mean, it doesn't make it easy, right? It's a tough business. For the final episode in this season's Beyond Madness series, we delve into this fascinating topic, which is filmed with a live audience featuring a panel of journalists who shared some of their harrowing personal experiences. In fact, I remember hearing some of these answers when we had the event here, and it was absolutely incredible. So you don't want to miss this. Different kind of episode, but absolutely worth your while. Beyond Madness, brought to you in proud association with Adcock Ingram OTC. You know what OTC stands for?
No.
Over the counter. Over the counter.
Of course.
Yeah. Adcock Ingram OTC, the sponsors of Brave. Go and check out Beyond Madness.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
I had a meeting yesterday with somebody who hasn't yet listened to Beyond Madness, and I think she said to me, "Oh, I feel so bad about not listening to Beyond Madness." So hopefully she'll be listening from today. Very good. Okay. Lebang is doing this major drive to get people to vote for her in the APVA Awards, which I didn't even know existed until now, but well done.
Thank
she
you,
has a
Auntie.
nomination. She is
I've got 2.
In the running. 2 nominations.
I've got two nominations in the African Podcast Voice Awards. The first one is Podcast of the Year, which is like, what? Because I'm up against like some really heavy hitters, which is exciting. And the second one is Best Children's Podcast. So vote for Life with Lebang, and it's also very, very easy. You just go to the website and then you put in your email address. 1 email address per vote. So take your work email address, your home email address, your every email address you can find, and just vote. So we can bring it home. I think the awards are in September. So that's going to be really cool. Obviously, the price is going to change. Yesterday's price will not be tomorrow's price.
Very good.
Guess who got nominated for 2 ABVA awards? Me! Please vote for me. Oh my gosh, my podcast got nominated. I'm so excited. All you need to do is go to awards.apva.africa/vote now. Scroll down to Podcast of the Year and look for Life with Lebang by Lebang Kgosana. Oh my gosh, that's me. Then simply put in your email address and click vote. Send this to your mom, your dad, your aunt, your cousins, anybody that has an email address, and simply give them these instructions so they can also vote. When you see the green box, you've done God's work. Scroll down with the quickness down to the next category, which is children's podcast. Oh my.
You can find this on, jeez.
You'll definitely find it. It's all over social media. I'm bombarding people's
Lebang
Instagrams.
is plugging this away. Like,
I have to. Like, it's a selfless plug. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
That's
good.
fine.
Good for you. All right. I do have to show you this quickly. This is amazing. Where did this come from, the Spur menu thing? Because this brought up all kinds of memories. So, Ryan, where's it from?
So I found this on TikTok as I was scrolling yesterday, and I thought I had to bring it to come and show you because, well, I haven't seen prices like this.
Prices so low, you won't believe it. So, like, just look at this. So this is the kids menu of somewhere in the 90s. At Spur. Just take a look at this.
Early 90s.
It's going to frighten the hell out of you. And if you can't see the visuals, don't worry, because the guy in the video actually tells you the price of these things, and you will not believe what things used to cost.
So look what I found is a Spur menu from the 90s. Spur burger, R7.95. In a boerewors, R7.95. Ribs, R9.95. Sure. Kids chicken, R7.95. Fish fingers and chips, R7.95. Good grief. Oh, I remember this thing. I love that thing.
Do you remember Chico the Clown?
No.
I forgot about
God.
that.
Chico the Clown was this, they would give you 2 dollops of ice cream, and then the eyes would be like Smarties, and there'd be a cone on the top, And there was some other
I feel like there's got to be a flake in there somewhere as well.
Yeah, there's probably a flake in there. But wow, that was like, Mom, can I please have a chicken in the clown? I can't believe. So ribs, $9.95.
You can literally feed a family for under $100.
You could.
Yeah, and the
Unreal.
people probably did.
And here's the real menu, right? The wooden. Remember those wooden menus?
The wooden
Yes,
ones. The totem menus.
Wow.
Okay, so let's have a look at the adults menu. Starters, there we go, $7.25. Crumbed mushrooms, $9.30. Then there's junior kebabs, ladies rump. Spur kebabs, spur schnitzel, $21. Hot rock rump, $28. Ranch chicken. Then we have hot rock fillet, $30. 39.
So fillet was 30 Rand 95.
Yarra.
And did you see there they had the surf and turf?
Yes, the good old surf and turf. What a time.
You gotta love the surf and turf.
What a time.
But those were that was incredible. I mean, things were cheap. You see how inflation creeps up on you like Christopher Reeve.
You know what is funny? We say it now, but back in the day, that $7.95 was like, all we have is 100 Rand for the whole meal.
Right.
So that is quite pricey. There was never a time where we saw the $7.95.
That's why your mom said, "No, Chico, the clown for you."
Exactly. So,
Mommy, because we don't have enough money. We're poor.
Must have been nice to live in those days when the rand could stretch that far.
Well, you were alive in those days.
No, I was. I mean,
I was a baby.
I used to buy like a packet of chips for like
Don't say it like it's another country or like the olden days. Don't say it like this is a different world. This is a world we inhabited. You were there. You just didn't know about money.
And you don't remember it because you were a baby.
Yeah. What the hell's wrong with you? All right. So people are talking about X being changed to Twitter. We've kind of covered that. I just don't think it really matters to most people. It's going to be confusing. What do you call it now when you tweet?
Yeah.
That's a problem. And I do think you're giving up some pretty good territory there because Twitter is a thing. It's a major brand, whether people like it or not. It's a silly thing for Elon Musk to be doing this. Sure, call the parent company X, but Twitter is Twitter, and I don't think this is going to affect anything. It's not going to help necessarily or hinder. I just think it's a waste of the IP that they've built up in Twitter.
Sure. I mean, let's see. You know how people are. People generally don't know what they want. So they'll sit and complain about it, but then they'll be the first people to be enjoying it.
I think they should. I was thinking of like what it could be called, right? Like, you know, like Twitter Blue gives you more views and things like that.
Sure.
They should call Twitter Blue like Exhibit.
Oh.
Remind me not to put Ryan in charge of any marketing. Holy
I
hell.
know, it'd be good.
Really? All right.
Well, it's better than Zeeting.
Apparently, Musk's brand overhaul coincides with pressure from the new challenger Threads by Meta with Mark Zuckerberg. Threads uses people's Instagram accounts and functions like a simpler, currently advertising free version of Twitter. Twitter has also had a brand toolkit page on its website calling the light blue bird its most recognizable asset. While that page says the company is protective of its logo and offers guidelines on how to use it, Musk apparently is not a fan. It should have been done a long time ago, he said during a brief Twitter Spaces appearance, referring to a changing of the logo. We're cutting the Twitter logo off of the building with blowtorches, he said, potentially referring to the sign he's already altered on the company's San Francisco headquarters. Okay.
Bye, bird.
The police actually stopped them doing it. It was quite weird. The police are like
but
marching by because they thought he was doing something
of course,
illegal.
but San Francisco is so health and safety, and you know, it's like one of those cities where everything just there's so many rules.
Even Elon Musk says it's a bit of a shithole. Like
bureaucracy. Like I wouldn't want to be in San Francisco.
They're
right
trying
now.
to move out of there.
Horrible. But while we're talking about Musk, because I know you're a big fan, so we've saved all the Elon Musk stories for today, just for Ryan. Look at how excited he is about Elon Musk. So his SpaceX rocket punched a hole through the ionosphere, lies on the edge of space, is filled with charged particles called ions. A rocket launched by SpaceX punched a temporary hole in the ionosphere surrounding our planet, according to a report in spaceweather.com. I don't know if this is a good thing. I'm not sure punching holes in the ionosphere is what we should be doing.
With the way it's worded,
Right?
it doesn't make it sound that great.
It worries me a little bit. So according to them, the Falcon 9 rocket launched July 19th from the Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. According to the company website, it is a reusable two-stage rocket for the reliable and safe transport of people and payloads into Earth orbit and beyond. SpaceX also said that it is the world's first orbital-class reusable rocket. Falcon 9 has conducted 240 launches and 198 landings. That's impressive.
Have you seen how incredible that rocket landing thing, when they bring it back down,
phenomenal.
How it like
absolutely
sits
amazing.
down itself? It's insane.
No, it's proper. That's really. I mean,
can you imagine having like
stuff?
Musk's agenda? Like 1 minute you're at Twitter, then the next you go to a thing for SpaceX, and then you have to go sort out an electric car. Like,
it's cool.
It's very cool.
What
a cool thing to and he's got, like you, he's got like 7 children or something.
Yeah, probably even more. Like that's
so
the most unaverage
it can be done, right?
Definitely.
It can be done.
Definitely, yeah.
Lebang, by the way, arrived this morning in her Tuk Tuk.
Yes. Guys, I've got a driver, a personal driver.
You do? I mean, I think this is amazing.
Your driver must
have a personal driver.
I do have a personal driver, yes. He drives me and only me. And
it's amazing.
We have this thing where I pay him in advance. So I give him like a monthly amount that he gets.
That's brilliant.
Right?
I think you're way cleverer than me.
Thank you, Gareth.
This is a very good way of doing things.
It works wonders so that in the middle of the month, when I start getting broke, at least I know I can still get to where I need to go.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy with it.
I'm not criticizing it, but it is a funny little car.
Well, it's not a car. It's like it's a little Tuk-Tuk. It's really cute, though.
I saw it parked there in the other entrance. I'm like, oh, no. She's using this thing again.
Yes, she is.
It's becoming your thing.
It is my Wednesday morning thing. It just makes it's I like
Is
to
he like
it.
complaining like, oh no, she's got my number now. Now I have to take her call.
He loves it.
Oh,
does he?
He's because I mean, like, it's
Really?
difficult being a Tuk-Tuk driver.
Are you sure?
Trust me.
You sure he likes it?
He's really enjoying our
Well, I mean,
conversations.
How does the hair fit in that Tuk-Tuk?
Well,
that's what Ryan said.
That's
That's what Ryan said. It really did fit in there. No, there is no.
Does it
seatbelt
struggle
in
up the
Tuk-Tuk.
hills? Does it go like?
It just goes a lot slower, obviously, but like, you know, if you can drive, then you'll be able to get through it.
I find Tuk-Tuk like drivers are the bravest people on the roads because
No. Those Uber Eats guys.
Uber Eats. Huh?
They're both the
Yeah.
bravest and the stupidest because they drive really, really dangerously,
Recklessly, right?
squeezing between cars, not braking at stop streets, you know, kind of thing, and then they get hit way more than any other kind of vehicle.
Can I
do.
tell you
The number of accidents I've seen with Uber Eats
Same.
bikes.
Same.
in
And
college?
around here, even.
In college, I literally got a call from a friend of mine, and he was like, "Ryan, I've just knocked a driver down. I'm gonna need your help." And I went and helped him out. You know, the police came and everything, but then he had to go back to the police station to give a statement. And so I had to walk in with this guy to the Brixton police station after you've just knocked a driver down.
Oh, Brixton.
Let me tell you, are not looked at well. I mean, and then we had to go to the place where he worked, which was a pizza place in Melville. And then, you know, go and try and explain the situation there. And they don't like, there's no good way of that story ending because they don't like you either. Like, why don't you look when you're driving? But these dudes drive like crazy.
They're beating the clock.
They're like MotoGP riders,
They
but
on
with
the
like
clock.
a delivery
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah.
Lebang, someone says here, Nico says, as long as you accept that your chances are 0 to survive if that Tuk-Tuk gets hit by another car.
Thank you for your concern, Nico. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I needed to hear that today.
She's not bothered.
Bruh.
Not at all. That's her thing now, the Tuk-Tuk. All right. One other thing that I think we need to throw into the news here, and this is quite scary, in what could be the plot line for the next cheesy disaster movie, scientists think crazed and hungry sharks off the coast of Florida that have eaten packages of cocaine sharks could be a thing.
Yes, please. I'd watch that.
Like we need anything else in this world more with.
You remember
like,
Cocaine Bear?
sharks.
Remember Cocaine Bear?
I remember Cocaine Bear.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still have to see that movie. I was dead keen and then I just completely forgot about it.
Even if you don't, it's meh.
I don't know. I think it would be hilarious, but I think you got to see it with friends and you got to be drunk. Anyway,
Sure.
so cocaine sharks may be a thing. The ocean predators chomping on floating pharmaceuticals cast overboard by passing traffickers. Marine scientists who made the TV program say the purpose is to go beyond gratuitous entertainment. A hammerhead, which is a kind of shark, right?
Yeah.
They'd usually swim away from humans, came directly towards them, moving erratically. They also observed a sandbar shark swimming in circles as it apparently focused on an imaginary object. They also concluded experiments, including dropping dummy bales in the water, which many of the sharks took bites out of. and loading balls of bait with highly concentrated fish powder to simulate cocaine. In effect, the researchers said it was akin to catnip for cats.
Wow.
The next best thing was this, and it set their brain aflame. It was crazy, the one scientist said on the show.
Sure. Humans are the actual problem as far as Earth is concerned.
Well, where would sharks ever get cocaine
Exactly.
if humans were involved in this?
Oh, the
It takes-
sharks.
They're literally buried, like, you know.
Well,
They
exactly.
need to get rid of it. They just
Yeah.
toss it aboard.
Cocaine shark.
Like we needed this in 2023. Like, you know, do you not influence people enough? Like, are there no more people that you want to get involved with cocaine? I was like,
No.
let's see what you can do with these guys.
Well,
It's
I mean,
messy.
as
Can you imagine a cocaine addicted shark coming
as,
at
as,
you?
as
I'd
Congo
rather
Chris
not.
says, though, the sharks are getting fucked up by the orcas. That could explain why they're self-medicating with dwellies.
I've heard about these orcas.
Mhm. Yeah, these orcas are scary, man. I've seen some videos of those things. They are by far the most dangerous animals in the sea.
I
By
just,
far.
I just want to say, leave the ocean alone.
Humans.
As soon as I knew, like, as soon as we heard about that submersive going underneath, I was like, why are you guys trying to mess with the ocean? Leave it alone. It's one place we can't go. You know,
So you're anti-exploration.
yes.
You're,
Well,
you're
of the ocean. I mean, like,
So
what
how
un-
about space exploration?
No,
Because there's probably shit out there that'll kill us,
probably
like a lack
but I
of
mean-
oxygen for a start.
For starters.
Yeah,
But the thing is, well, I don't want to say we built for space.
you're
but I feel like-
anti-exploration. You're basically anti-science. That's what you are.
no, I just believe that we don't need to go and explore the ocean. We can't physically go there, so why are we trying? Look what happens to the submersible.
Just leave it. And
Just please, Ryan. That's the one accident that's happened in the last while. The people send these deep sea submarines down trenches all the time. People survive. That was one. You focus on. It's like saying we mustn't use planes because there've been one or two plane accidents.
It's a fair argument.
You can walk to Cape Town if you want to, but I'm not going to.
I'm just like, you know what? The ocean's the one place I draw the line because I'm like, that's just
Well, I do agree that there's a lot of stuff in there that wants to kill us.
Mm,
Like there are a lot of very, very dangerous animals, and
But-
even the ones
Yeah.
that sting. You know, when I hear these stories about these giant squid that live at
mm.
you know these unbelievable depths, these huge, they're like twice the size of this room. That scares the hell out of
That
me.
is
but,
pretty
but like,
creepy.
what do you want to see down there? What's gonna make?
Oh,
you,
come on! You
are
don't
you-
think it's fascinating?
What do you want to see? Atlantis?
You know,
Like,
you've got those little fish that live in complete darkness because it's so dark down there in the depths of the ocean, Marianas Trench and places like that,
Mhm.
Mm.
where these fish are. It's so dark that they have little lamps that they
Yeah.
use to lure other
Yeah,
fish,
yeah.
It is
and
interesting.
then that lamp is like a neon sign for all the other fish, and then they come
Mm.
close, and then this thing opens its huge big jaws.
Yeah, it is interesting, but there's definitely a balance. So what you'll find is that most people just want to know more and a bit too much. So they don't have any boundaries.
Come on.
There's no stop. You know when
gotta
you've just got
explore.
too much
Listen,
money.
we live on Earth.
I,
We've got to explore. I
Yeah,
spoke
but-
to Daryl Bristow-Bovey last week about that book he wrote about the Shackleton expedition
Yes,
to
yes, yes,
Antarctica. Fascinating story. I think that humans we've stopped exploring. Like the only place left to explore is space because we've pretty much done everything you could do on Earth. And then people tell me, no, there are vast parts of the ocean
that
we know
haven't
nothing
even-
about.
No, I'm sure. I think there's a whole world down there that we don't know about. But I'm just
So,
not.
but you're not interested enough
I'm
to.
not.
You're not
curi-
going
I'm not
exploring.
curious to go there.
But you
Ryan's
don't
not
mind.
the guy.
You don't mind if other people do.
No, I mean they can go do
Like,
it.
go at your own risk. If
whole
you die,
thing
you
was-
die.
My whole thing was that's submersible, right? There was no actual window that they could look out. Do you know everything they were seeing was from cameras, and they were looking at a little screen.
So what's
Well,
the point?
That's what I'm saying.
They
So
could have just sent.
They could have just watched the YouTube video. Exactly. Like if you at least go have an open window in
Yeah.
the
Guys,
in the
Too
ship or
much
whatever.
money. Too much money is a problem. You get bored of the things on like that you can see with your own eyes. You've done everything, you've experienced everything, you've been
Well-
everywhere. So now you want to go to places
Well,
where only
well,
your money can take you.
we've
I-
learned. We've
This
learned
is it,
something.
right?
We've learned that Ryan is anti-exploration and anti-science.
No,
I
okay.
don't think that's true.
No, I'm not. I personally don't want to go down there. I'm happy to stay above ground.
Sure.
That's
He's anti-science. I'm sticking to my guns. Ocean is 70% of the Earth. That's a lot of yummy history, ancient civilizations, and all that stuff, Shani. Yeah, there's lots we don't know.
Exactly.
I think there's plenty to be discovered. In the deserts, under all that sand, there might be whole civilizations. In the forests of, Mexico and the Amazon, there could be things that we don't know about. There's a lot to explore, man. I mean, Antarctica, for example, just that whole huge continent of Antarctica. It's covered in snow and ice. We don't know what's underneath there.
I don't know if you've seen, there's the new ship that's taking off soon. I think it's in the beginning of 2024. They say it's a lot bigger than the Titanic, and it can hold up to, is it 7,500 to 10,000 people?
There are already cruise liners,
crazy.
6 or 7,000 people on board.
I mean,
it's incredible.
Just the amount of staff they can hold is 2,500, and I think the Titanic was like 600-800.
Yeah, no, that's not.
So
Titanic's like tiny compared to.
And also, like how heavy this boat is, it's insane.
Listen, have you ever been on one of these big cruise ships?
I haven't.
So some of them, the biggest ones I've been on, like 12 stories.
Sure.
From bottom to top, and that's not even including the floors that you're not allowed to go to because you're not staff. Like the engines are down in the very bottom.
So like maybe it's like 20 in total.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So some of these could be way more than that. Some of these are like properly monstrous, right?
Yeah,
How long have you spent on a ship?
10 days is the longest I've been.
And do you feel?
No, I mean they've worked it out. First of all, these things are so massive.
No, they're huge.
That the waves and the wind hardly like make a difference. Everything's now calibrated electronically. They've got stabilizers. I mean, it's not like those sailing ships in the old days where you're be battered by the wind and you go up on huge swells. And I don't think it's like Master and Commander with Russell Crowe. But I mean, especially if you are in the Mediterranean, it's mostly calm. I mean, if you're in the Indian Ocean, it can be quite rough. I mean, I remember I went away with the family in 2000. And we took one of those cruises to Mauritius, and that was harrowing because there was a cyclone.
Oy.
And the ship was going like this and like this.
Some turbulence.
But the interesting thing is, if you get seasick, and I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in this because I haven't been on enough boats to know, but you actually have to just go with the flow. Literally. Sure. So if the ship is moving from side to side, you just sit there and you kind of let your body go side to side. If you fight it, that's where you end up feeling seasick.
When you got off, did you feel, because obviously you had adapted to it, did you feel a bit weird when you got off?
Yeah, you get what they call sea legs. So then you wobble a bit. You're like, you feel like the solid ground under you is moving. But it's lovely. It's a nice feeling.
I find it fascinating. Like I saw the photo of this new ship that's going out, and I'm like, and I just don't understand how it's so heavy and it floats. But I mean, I'm no scientist.
So Alan says here, Gareth, have you been to Iceland? No, but Rena's going there.
Very soon, actually.
Yeah, she's going there. She's going there in August, and apparently,
is it not cold enough in Johannesburg?
Well, no. So it'll be summer in Iceland, but apparently it is the most beautiful place in the world. Rich Mulholland, who we've had on the show a few times, he told me, out of all the places he's been, and he's traveled way more than I have, he said Iceland is it.
Is that like where it's at?
He told me Iceland is so absolutely beautiful. They've got beaches that are black sand.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it looks like a fantasy, like something you'd see in a movie. They've got volcanoes. They've got hot springs. They've got beautiful waterfalls, green icebergs floating by. I mean, it's just the most incredible place. So yeah, I haven't been, but we'll have some feedback from Rena about that soon.
That sounds cool. But there's still so much of like South Africa that needs to be traveled as well. Like in general.
Where do you want to go?
I mean, people haven't even explored parts of this country. There are parts of South Africa. The Karoo is huge.
Bro, it's massive. I've just driven through it. I haven't like actually stopped to see what's going on. I want to do like Mpumalanga proper, like every corner of it because there's just so much.
Where would you still like to, if you did have an adventurous spirit, which we found out Ryan definitely doesn't. he's not pro adventure. He's anti-adventure.
Anti-Christopher Columbus.
That is
You're
not
anti-adventure.
true.
No, he's anti-adventure.
Defend yourself, Ryan.
Where would you go if I gave you an all-expenses adventure trip? Not like our holiday. You have to go and explore somewhere. As an anti-exploration person, where would you go?
I'd probably go to Australia.
That's not very, to the
Down under.
Into the desert?
No, well, I mean, they've got the desert there, but they also have these beautiful little islands.
What, like on the East Coast? You got the Great Barrier Reef and all that stuff.
Well, I
Is
mean,
that what you'd go for? Great Barrier Reef? You talk about things that want to kill you.
yeah, no,
Australia's
definitely got some stuff on the
full.
list.
But you'd fit right in, like the look, the energy, the vibe.
Oh, really?
You think so?
Yeah.
There's a lot of South Africans.
Where
there.
would you go?
I'd probably go somewhere in Europe, like where there's mountains and it's very like cold and
like
frosty.
See the
Switzerland.
bung,
or-
like
Yes,
climbing
this
up
is-
there with skis.
This is the energy, like all the stuff that I'd probably never think of doing. I'd want to do that just because it's probably the last thing on my list. Definitely some tension. So wherever it's cold and wherever there's big mountains and wherever I have to climb up a lot of
The cold
those-
thing throws me because I can't do
yeah,
cold.
well, isn't that most of Europe anyway? Like most
Yeah.
parts, it's like really cold up there.
Carl says, I can just hear the Cape Tonians getting their tits in a knot when you said Iceland is the most beautiful place in the world.
But then I'm more in city.
hmm Road tripping across Africa from the bottom to the top along the coast. That would be fun.
Nice.
Donna,
That
that
does sound
that
very
sounds
nice.
awesome. I like that.
Very, very nice.
Bastsana says the Galapagos Islands.
Ooh,
hmm
okay.
Got those tortoises that are like 200 or 300 years old.
Yes, those huge ones
Mhm.
from what's that movie called? Finding Nemo.
Okay, it's 7:00, people. We have to move on. We have to do other things. We have to get this show on the road.
Mhm.
So we have a special guest for you in just a moment or two. Stick around for that. All kinds of exciting things happening this morning. CliffCentral.com. It is Wednesday. What's the date today?
Yay, The 26th of July.
Oh my God, payday.
No, that
this
was
week.
That was
That was
yesterday.
Oh, it's not. But
You didn't even notice because for you it's just like
no, I don't. I don't. I'm sorry. I
Gareth
don't.
is just like
I don't get paid. I don't get paid.
every day is payday for Gareth.
I don't get paid. You guys get paid. So good for you. I'm happy that we could pay you this month.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Naturally, extreme weather means more claims. So they've seen about 25% additional claims in the last few crazy months of extreme weather. So there is a direct impact. So just watch out and make sure that you are covered for those sort of things because not all insurers or your policy might not cover. So I've done some research to find out what insurers are saying about the extreme weather.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
The pilot came to me. He was this perfect specimen in a uniform. He beckoned me to the cockpit, but the cockpit was like an entire suite, right?
Ooh, this is a Leanne Mole sex dream, TM.
He ended up having his way with me.
Who was in charge of the plane while this was happening? I would say if she dies, she dies, and let the old battle axe carry on her own, and don't worry about the example you set for your kids because you're their prime role model. I'm starting to understand why your mother hates you. Swine flu.
He's got that swine. Exactly. Oink oink.
I like that.
My name is Cedric. I'm 102 years old, and I must be the oldest person on your.
Have you ever tried Prime Energy drink, Cedric?
And I tried that drink, and it was great. Whoa, better than a tequila.
The Gareth Cliff Show on CliffCentral.com.
But this is something that will eventually need to happen, especially if this relationship that you're getting into is a serious one. Because whoever you invite into your life and is in your personal space and your little personal bubble will eventually need to know your child or your children, depending on what your situation is. So ideally, right, you want to make sure that you're introducing your child to somebody that you're serious about. So off the bat, don't meet somebody on Monday and think that Tuesday is the right time to introduce them to your child. Ensure first and foremost, before you even think of bringing your child into the picture, you have to think about the relationship that you are starting and beginning. Does it feel like this relationship is going to last? Does this person have the right values? The kind of background that this person comes from? Is it in line with the kind of, partner you'd want to essentially and eventually help you to raise your child?
right. It is a Wednesday morning on cliffcentral.com, just after 7 o'clock. And we are going to welcome to the studio someone who everybody in Johannesburg and the rest of South Africa knows. She is always busy. She's always doing 100 things, and she's phenomenal at all of them. Dorianne Weil is a clinical and organizational psychologist. She's got over 30 years of experience in hospital, private, and corporate practice. Dr. D is pretty much, I think you're my favorite, which I know is going to piss off a lot of other psychologists, but you're not just my favorite psychologist. You're one of my favorite people. Full stop. That's always been true. How are you, Dorianne?
Oh, Gareth.
Hang on, let's just adjust this camera. It looks like you've, there we go. That's good.
That's a lovely welcome.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual, I have to say.
How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Fine, thank you. Early in the morning.
I know.
Great to be here.
But how's your foot? Because didn't you hurt your foot the other day?
I hurt my foot quite a long time ago.
This must irritate you because you like wearing really nice shoes.
Yeah.
The last time we featured you on the show, and it wasn't about psychology or anything else, was your collection of shoes and handbags.
Yes, it was, indeed.
Which, Lebang, let me tell you, you have no idea of what Dorianne has in terms of a collection of shoes and handbags.
Sure, that sounds like I need to go shopping in your collection.
Well, I think that you need to visit me.
Yes.
And while this foot is sort of fallow, so to speak,
yes.
Those shoes are sort of
But you better put it to work.
Yeah, they're displayed longingly, on the shelves, and I think that they need a little bit. They need a little bit of walking.
A little bit of walking.
Yeah,
well, I am happy to fill in and do exactly that. Just send an invite. And we can make it happen.
You're welcome.
So let me just read something to you quickly. This is what Nelson Mandela said about Dorianne. I hope this doesn't embarrass you because I think this is quite cool. Not a lot of people have something like this in their CV, and you don't put this in your CV. I found out about this. This is what President Nelson Mandela said. I don't know if you're aware of the hope and inspiration you offer and the difference you make to so many lives. Dorianne, thank you for the great contribution you make to building our nation. That's a hell of an intro. I mean, that's quite something to have.
Look, Gareth, it really is, and I am proud of it. And I do highlight it because, first of all, I am proud of it. It isn't an endorsement that many people have. And there's a backstory to that. And, knowing that and the relationship that I was so privileged to have with Nelson Mandela.
You met him a few times. I mean, you knew him quite well.
Yes, I did know him quite well. It was actually interesting, during the struggle, he was an iconic figure and a hero to lots of us, especially those who were considered ourselves sort of activists at university. Right. When he came out, I went to meet him. I flew to Cape Town to meet him. Actually, many of my friends didn't. They said that it would be too hot, too dangerous. Stay at home, watch it on television. So I ended up going with the kids of some friends of mine. And it was a great moment and a great day.
I'm sure.
And I met him several times after that. My late husband at the time, happened to be the president of the South African Chamber of Business. So we were involved in the inauguration and all of those. And we met him, but we met him in crowds with other people, not so much one-on-one. And then what happened was actually quite a strange story. My kids were born in a very unusual way after many years and after a long struggle. And it was an incredible celebration. They were actually born of a surrogate mother who lived in the United States. And against all odds, people would say, but statistics show you have to give up. And that was very defining for me because I think one of the things that drive me from that period is that you just don't give up. There is always...
And you have two wonderful children to show for it.
They are wonderful.
Yeah.
And, there's always another way. And so in celebration of that and the event that we had, we asked for no gifts, but donations to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund.
Oh, wow.
One of your late colleagues, Jeremy Mansfield, featured in that story as well. Because I came home one day, got a message from the babysitter to say that Nelson Mandela had called.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
And I said, yeah, this is Jeremy Mansfield from 702 for sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of wondered what she'd been smoking. And the next morning, when the phone rang and he said, Mrs. Weil, I said, yes. He said, this is Nelson Mandela. I said, yeah, Jeremy, sure.
Oh, wow.
And I think I was the only person that called Nelson Mandela Jeremy Mansfield. And he said, no, this is President Nelson Mandela. I said, good morning, Mr. President. Following that, there was an invitation to dinner, which we couldn't make because I thought that it was still Jeremy. I didn't believe it.
Really?
And then
Sure.
so I said, no, sorry. We were going. But then we accepted a breakfast. And when we went, and it was legitimate and there was no one else there, and it was in the Houghton House. And he opened the door himself and had breakfast with him. And actually, it had nothing to do with that donation at all, which I thought it would have. He was building schools and hospitals in Kunu, where he lived in the Transkei.
Right.
And he thought that there may be some assistance. We had, at the time, a much, much smaller business, a property company, than the names that he was talking about, but nevertheless got on very well, said that we would offer some assistance, and then flew with him in his plane, Stella Sakau, Steve Shweti to the Transkei. That's where he started developing a relationship there and back. And he was interested in the radio and the show, what we were doing, and kept up the relationship throughout his whole life. Visited him several times.
See, I'm learning things about you here, and this is why I wanted to have you in for this discussion, because there's some I've known you a long time. We've been on a couple of lunches, and I've been all over the world and seen you in far-flung places, New York and London. But there are things about you that I don't know. And I think that's probably why it's a good idea to sit down with you for a whole hour and talk to you about your life. It's a pretty amazing life and continues to be an amazing life. I mean, you never sit still. Every other time I hear about where you are, India, Australia, China, America, you're giving these talks, you're involved with YPO, you're involved with all kinds of really interesting projects all over the world. You're no longer just the Dr. D from 702 that many people will know.
Well, look,
and I mean, we obviously had you very much involved with us during the Oscar Pistorius trial, where we were talking to you almost on a weekly basis. Did you see, by the way, he's up for parole?
I saw that.
What do you think of that?
I saw that.
While we're on it.
Well, I mean, you remember those conversations we had, and I was often a lone voice. I was definitely a lone voice in the media, because I actually, and still, after going back to it now, and there seems to be some other evidence on a different level. There's a clinical psychologist from Toronto called Brett Wilcox, who has written a book and who is writing to me about parasomnia, which means, I don't know much about it at all. There's a part of the brain that can be stimulated and that can be awake, but that you're not fully awake. I was talking all the time about Oscar Pistorius having amygdala hijack, which I still think you remember that.
Absolutely.
That he was triggered, and that when you are in that emotional state of fight, flight, or freeze, you react and not respond, which means you're unable to think. Your neocortex, where you think and respond properly, kind of shuts down. You have to react in the moment, and that comes out of either you eat or be eaten, you were lunch or had lunch, and that primitive part of the brain is still alive. And because I knew a little bit of his history, and he had been triggered like that before in circumstances which didn't warrant the reaction which he displayed. Looking at the conversations, what happened that night, the Valentine's Day card, all of that with him and Reva, the way the toilet was flushed and so on. I really was convinced. Definitely, he admitted it. He killed her for sure. But I still don't think that it was intentional.
I want to talk to you about some of this stuff, because you and I always go down the rabbit hole of talking about mental health. And, it's become, and I'd like your perspective on this, because you started all those years ago working as a psychologist, and the mental health world has changed in leaps and bounds. I mean, it's a different universe now to what it was then. And it was still very much taboo. And it was about going to, like these mental hospitals, which were these terrifying places. And they threw everybody in. If you had anorexia, if you had multiple personality disorder, if you were slightly schizophrenic or if you were bipolar, if all of these things that became, they were terrifying terms.
Well,
right?
it's really interesting, because where
people talk about it.
around the corner from here and and it was very much in this domain. There was Tara Hospital where I worked for a very, very long time, and people would use that almost as a sort of derogatory threat. If you said something that was a bit off key,
let's say we're going to put you into Tara.
We're going to put you into Tara. You're going to Tara. So I mean, that was the kind of connotation of it. The kind of thing, the ethic at the time is that we present a clean image. So does society, so does everyone. If you're a little bit off kilter, now it's quite politically correct. In fact, it's quite woke.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it's quite sought after.
So people put in
the
their...
more quirks you have, and normal is kind of considered boring. Normal is just of what the majority of people do.
Dori, people put it in their Twitter biography. They say, I'm 24, my pronouns are she, her, and I suffer from XY mental illness.
It's a personality trait now.
It's a personality trait, but more than that, it's a sought after thing. It means I'm living my life. It means I've experimented a bit. It means that I've had different kinds of experiences. I'm probably sought after, more capable than anyone else. And
I've overcome something.
Well, look, it shows in some way, Gareth, of how the pendulum has swung. Because to me, it's sort of not the objective judgment; it's the subjective effect. So, I mean, if you're going through something that is the duration and extent, those two factors, how bad, how long, and how much, such that it's interfering either with your personal or professional life, and that you can't cope. It's not kind of something on the outside to be lauded or celebrated. It really has a terrible effect on you. But I think that in many, many ways, so the pendulum swung, funnily enough, I think what the greatest, a huge effect on the perception of mental health and the coming out proudly of it was COVID. Because, so much of it was mental health problems. There were real mental health problems. COVID acted as an incubator. So what happened that if you, and it happened in relationships as well, if you were locked down and your relationship was inherently fairly good and your way of communication was good, it served. I mean, I often did things in icebreakers that I did for groups. You were talking about YPO and other groups all over the world. We often start with, in that time, what has been the greatest impact of COVID? And you would imagine it would be negative. For many people, they said that what it has done is there's been a priority shift. It's been connecting. One guy said to me, I used to think there were a few short people in my house. Now I call them my children. It was one thing. And and people spoke about improvement in relationships and so on. But the divorce rate rose all over the world if things were not good, So it served that. But what it did for mental health is it destigmatized it. It gave people permission. There were all kinds of celebrities, athletes, people who spoke much more openly about mental health problems. The result of that is that, I'm working with a lot of CEOs and managers, they sometimes say, you can't believe what's happening. Everybody who wants a day off these days comes to me and says, I got mental health problems. We're supposed to be very, very
people do.
they
take mental health days, right?
See,
It's a thing.
I mean,
what do you think of that?
It's become a thing. Well, Gareth, I mean, I can be funny about it, and we can be, but I also think that in so many ways, when something becomes understood, it becomes sought after and mainstream. So, what I mean is that, the things that should be considered when you talk about all the different pronouns and all of that, it's got to be to such an extent that it's confusing. And I think that it's quite sad in a way, because people who have really, really struggled, and trust me, I see them. I see the ones who have battled, the ones who for their whole life have believed that they're in the wrong body, the ones who've had to put up, with all the, not only the kind of jobs, but really personal psychological trauma. They've been tied by these psychic ropes. They've been unaccepted. They haven't really found the journey. And now there's a bit of relief because there is much more acceptance and way out. But so many other people are wanting to jump on the bandwagon. Some of it for experimentation.
So you mentioned Oscar Pistorius. I brought it up. But the fact is, there are also a lot of people who just don't want to take personal responsibility. And mental health just gives them another avenue to use as an excuse. I'm not saying this is true for even a minority of people. Who knows? It's probably just a few bad people who are doing this. But I hear now, for example, there was this woman who like faked a kidnapping in America just this week. She said that she stopped on the highway and she saw a toddler walking down the highway, and she went to rescue the toddler. And then this guy in a truck picked her up and took her away and molested her. And then she was eventually released. Of course, she had to admit afterwards it was complete nonsense because the whole of America is on film. There are cameras everywhere. So they saw that she'd totally made it up. She had no evidence to prove any of this had happened. She was attention seeking. Her bad choices are responsible here. But her boyfriend comes out and says, "Oh, can everybody please stop bullying her on social media? It's not good for her mental health." I'm sorry, but you've made terrible choices. The mental health thing you can't now use as an excuse for your irresponsible behavior.
Look, perhaps I'm just a little bit, I don't know, should I say, I'm not, well, let me say it like this. I can't think of another word at the moment. A little bit less judgmental in one sense. I think that
you have to be as a psychologist,
no, I'll tell
right?
you why. Yeah, you do in a sense. But I think that people who need to go to those desperate needs to kind of concoct those sort of stories, to make up those kind of things for attention. What is the need about that they need attention so much? Why are they not getting their needs met in any ways that are remotely functional? So no, I go along with you. I think this thing that you said about accountability is very central to a huge amount of things. And I think that if people would realize that they maintain themselves in positions that are dysfunctional because of lack of accountability. I mean, I can give you a simple example that nearly happened to me today. I have got this broken foot that I'm walking around with, which means that I can't drive. When I spoke to your co-founder,
It must be killing you, by the way, because you hate being you love being independent.
I'm restricted and so on and so on. But I thought, okay, this is fine. I've been doing it for since the 1st of June, actually, and it's going for a bit of a longer time. So now I'm Ubering or getting lifts. And I was told there won't be a problem this morning for Gareth's show. The Ubers are around, and there was no Uber.
Oh,
no Uber, no. I was just frantic, that I was going to be late. But the example that I'm going to give you is I once had a client who came, and it was on a Friday, which I was thinking to myself, if you start building up resentment, you should have said no. Every time you say yes when you really mean no, you build up resentment to the very person who you are trying to be nice to. So and I said, okay, you late. He said, I'm sorry, I'm late because of the traffic. So it's Friday afternoon, can happen. Yeah. The next time he says same thing, 20, 25 minutes late, I'm late because of the traffic. And the third time you want to say, look, you're not going to change the traffic. You are going to have to leave earlier. The minute you make the problem outside of yourself and you don't take accountability, you're also losing some of your capacity to deal with it. And
there we go. Can we just put that on repeat? I mean, Lebang, didn't I just say in a meeting the other day, like, I'd like us all to just be on time?
Yes.
Didn't I say that?
Just yesterday, actually.
Let's all be on time, because what Dori's saying there is so right. The minute you externalize this stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, can we get back to your story for a second? Because there's a part of the story which is really beautiful, and you just touched on it there very briefly. But the incredible, this journey that you went on in order to bring your kids into this world is quite something. And I think there are very few people who maybe they take it for granted that they just have. I mean, Lebang has got 5. Hey? She's got 5 kids.
Have you, Lebang?
I do.
5.
Yes.
I just want you to share that story with us.
I needed to learn what worked. You needed to learn what. So did you, Tony.
The secret was COVID. It was all COVID. To your story, that's when I popped 3 of them out.
Sure. Okay.
It worked.
But Dori, tell us how that all worked. And you really went to incredible lengths. And now you do have these 2 wonderful kids. I've met them both. I mean, they're really extraordinary, doing amazing things all over the world, just like you. But tell us how it all happened.
Funny enough, and I will tell you what happened, but when I told my son, Dean, that I was going to be, because he has known you his whole life. He's kind of grown up with you. You know, we started working together many, many years ago. He said, Gareth, I said, yes. He said, tell him to call me Ma. I'll tell him about you. He said, you know, they want to know what's and I'm a little bit nervous, but he said, no, you trust me. I'll tell them what a parent is. That, I mean, from my point of view, he really wanted to talk to you. So maybe we'll do that another time.
Yeah, get him in here.
But he really wanted to. You know, kids of parents, what do they say? That's quite interesting. So, you know, it was something, it was something that I really longed for. And during that time, my career was taking off. So it was quite interesting, you know, because I didn't have that responsibility at home. I was able to progress through the ranks, you know, at Wits and the Tara Hospital, and doing some teaching and all of that. But at the same time, I was having fertility treatment, which meant that I had to be at the various hospitals that I was going to all the time, very early in the morning, to have various injections and stand online and scans. And, you know, it was much less sophisticated than it is now.
And it's very, it can be quite traumatizing. It can be quite expensive. It's not a pleasant thing.
You know, that part of all of the above. What was even more traumatizing was the actual journey. Because, I mean, it seems crazy now because things are much more sophisticated. But I had 18 IVFs. And people who've gone through one or two, you know, just know what it is. The hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fantasies, the expectations, what will I call it? The not realization that each step along the way doesn't mean that the result is going to be good. I lost 7 pregnancies during the way. And I think the thing, when I say that journey defined me, it wasn't only becoming a mother in the end. And they were born with a surrogate mother who lives in the United States with our own genetic children.
Right.
So they are mine and my husband's. They were frozen. I mean, it is quite an incredible story.
That's amazing.
And it was against all odds. I mean, many doctors and religious leaders with the very, very best intentions used to say to us, you know, you must face reality now.
I'm sure.
And I remember saying, you know, what do you mean? I was naughty. I knew exactly what they meant. And they said, but statistics show. And I said, you know what? I don't think reality is only statistics. I think it's also got to do with something else. And I remember Deepak Chopra, who I used to quote at the time, used to say, the average rainfall in San Francisco doesn't tell you about the weather today. And so, you know, there was another element. And so there was another way and another way. And when we hit a brick wall in this way, and I said, well, I think it's enough. My husband would say, look, we were so close, one more time. And when he said no more, and in fact, what happened in the end is they said to him, you can't let her go through this anymore, because there was a lot of illness which they thought was related to the fertility. Some of it wasn't, some of it was. And they stopped it. But really, you know, how that defined me is that, you know, that was really an example of not giving up. And when I look at them, I mean, my kids they're 26 now, you know, and I look at them, I still feel the wonder of it. I still think to myself, sure, you know, take a look at you. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, you're really not meant to happen statistically. And so what that has done in terms of defining beliefs and how I live my life is that I almost always believe there's another way. No, for me, is just the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, it really is. It's finding.
That's so great.
Sometimes it doesn't work, but almost always it does.
Yeah.
And it's not miraculous because if you have that belief, you just simply try harder. If you believe that it's not going to work out, you give up.
Then won't.
You are right either way. You know,
there's always another way, right? And you just can't give up because it'll almost always most likely happen in the way that you want if you just keep believing.
Well, you know, it's belief. And then it's a bit of action on the belief.
Definitely.
You know, I remember there was that big book and movie that came out years ago, Gareth, you might remember, it was called The Secret.
Yeah.
And you remember with The Secret, it was basically, if you have affirmations and if you can visualize enough, it's going to happen. You know, just see the house that you want.
And did you think that was nonsense?
And one day it's going to miraculously just appear. And I remember I was an education chair. You mentioned Wapio. And and Jordan Peterson, who wrote The Wolf of Wall Street, was here. He came, and I just grabbed onto him and I said, "You're going to do an event for us." And we had him at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and I cheesed it, I vamped it up. We had little furry lampshades on the thing. We walked in there saying, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?" We really, because he is so over the top, so you could make the event.
Jordan, not
Peterson, sorry.
Jordan,
someone Jordan.
The Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, we know
not
who you're
Jordan
talking about.
Peterson. He's
I'll look it
the
up
psychologist who's the right-wing guy. Someone Jordan.
I'll look it up. Hang
Thanks. Look it up. Sorry, that was.
Wolf
thanks
of Wall
for correcting
Street.
me. Wolf of Wall Street. Anyway,
Jordan Belfort.
Jordan
Yes.
Belfort.
That's
Thank
who
you. I
you're
knew it was Jordan something.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got up there and he was talking about this phenomenal kind of bowing down to the secret and what it stood for. And I remember him saying, "Do you mean to say," he said, "if there are weeds in my garden and I want them to go away, I must just say, die effing weeds, die effing weeds, die effing weeds, die effing weeds, and they're going to die." He said, no. So what he was saying, and what is absolutely true, is the belief is the first part.
Sure.
It's the first part. You have to see it, believe that it's possible, but then it's action. It's a huge amount of action.
100%.
What can I do to make it happen? And some people believe things are meant to be. They've got that kind of thing irrespective. If you play in the traffic or you don't, if it's your time to do, you do. And other people say, 90% of what happens, or 5% of what happens, is luck, fate, or circumstance. If you take care of the 90%, the 5% takes care of itself.
Right.
And some people, after going through a lot of things, say, you know what, maybe there is some sort of partnership. I've got to do whatever I can. And then perhaps there's something like, you can call it universal energy. You can have a religious belief. You can call it Louise if you want, but you do what you can first.
Sure.
So in this incredible career of yours, and I'm talking about from the very beginning, you've told us about when you started off at Tara and at Wits, but tell us about some of the highlights of that career, some of the places you've been, the people you've met, the events that you've been at, because you've really met more people than most of us will ever meet in 10 lives.
There's meeting people, there's connecting, and there's meeting. And I just want to say also that part of the privilege that I've done, and Gareth, I know because I had to count the other day because I was updating my CV, I've actually had the privilege of working in 59 countries.
Sure.
And that work is to do with not only giving presentations, but even more than that, connecting with people on another level. It's facilitating groups, and it's being allowed and invited, perhaps tentatively at first, but really invited with developing trust that I hope is evident quite soon from the beginning. People get a feel of you into people's sacred space where they know that authenticity is related to vulnerability. So if they want to really come across as being authentic, which is necessary for deep connection, otherwise you're just connecting with a part of yourself. It's superficial. So you have to have the trust and the vulnerability to be able to be authentic in order for other people to see you. And for you to be really seen by them. Why is that important? Well, the feedback that you might get from that is given as a gift. In most situations, if you get feedback, especially if it's not amazing feedback, it's seen as a criticism. But in situations like that, that feedback is seen as a gift, and it can be used, and it increases your awareness, which then helps you with personal development. So involved in all sorts of things, being able to connect with people on that level in so many different cultures and in all around the world with the same kind of fears and sensitivities in small places. Some of these people are anxious. They say, look, we all know each other and we're friends. How is this going to affect these kind of connect groups or forum groups, that we've now been put into? And at the end of the day, Gareth, you just see, human beings are wired for connection, the need for
It's funny, they've just discovered, and I don't think this is news to you because you're on top of all this research in any case, but they've just discovered, Lebang, that one of the things that absolutely adds longevity and quality of life above all other things, it's not how often you go to gym, whether you eat only a vegan diet, whether you are doing all kinds of hormone replacement therapy or anti-aging, whatever it is. The number one thing that keeps people alive for longer and happier for longer is connections.
Well, it's quite easy for you who are listening to this to find this out. You just put in just Google Harvard longitudinal study. That's it. There's a TED talk, and they have been doing this study on people that they were second-year students about 80 years ago or more. So some of them, but they followed it up all the time. And of course, it was only men, because only men were
at Harvard
at Harvard at that time, as to what is going to result in happiness and fulfillment. And it's funny that the same sort of things that were said there now by the young students are said now: power, fame, money, status. And actually, what you've just said has proven to be true, that people who are in relationships live longer. They get sick. In fact, there's a wonderful book called Love and Survival, the scientific basis for the healing power of intimacy. And it shows that if people have support in their lives, it's actually something that the father of psychology, the good old Sigmund Freud, said at the turn of the century, when they said, "Hey, Dr. Freud, you're writing about crazy people, psychotic people, neurotic people, dysfunctional people. What would you say about happy people or fulfilled people?" And he said they all have someone to love. And he didn't mean a life's partner. What he meant is, if you need someone in the middle of the night, is there someone you know who has your back? Is there someone who's there to support you? Something to do, some sort of purpose of getting up in the morning. And I like this one, something to look forward to. And that's amazing, because so many people, I get quite irritated by it. They say, think positively, think positively, think positively. And what it means is that deny the reality sometimes, of what you're going through. And the only way out is in. You have to accept what you're going through then and deal with it. But optimism and belief and hope is different. What that means is that things change. Can you see that it's not always going to be like that? Maybe you can make it differently going forward. Perhaps it's going to be different. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel aren't always the lights of an oncoming train. It doesn't mean that you've got to, deny the current reality. So, I remember just on this, that I knew a woman who had a terminal illness. And whenever she wanted to talk about her worry and her anxiety about her girls, she had 2 daughters, everyone would say, "Don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. You're making yourself sick." I mean, how cruel is that? You're making yourself sick. And she just wanted the space to talk about it, until there was a group of people who said, let her stick with her feelings. Let her talk with her anxiety. Say, tell us more.
Let it out.
That must be difficult for you. And then come out on the other side and say, okay, is there anything that we can do? Tell us more, instead of being embarrassed because you don't know what to do, and your message is that's not allowed.
So to go back to your story for a second, because I keep bringing back
highlights you want.
Well, no, we'll get. I mean, career highlights we can talk about in a second. But you just mentioned kind of losing somebody, and now your kids are all grown up. But you did lose your husband, and they were quite young.
They were 16. And, it was really sad after having gone through this journey. I mean, it took us a really, really long time. And I remember at one stage, you talk about all of that list, the 5 steps that come from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
How to deal with grief.
How to deal with grief. And that there's anger, and then there's bargaining and sadness and acceptance. And then there's been a 6th one that has been added to it, actually by David. I'm forgetting names today. I mean, that might be significant. He worked with her for a long time, and he lost his son at 21. And he said, we've got to add another step. And it's called meaning. How can you find meaning? And don't do it too soon, only after a number of years of going through the list. But it may make it personal. It was. I remember at one stage obviously the overriding thing was
You've been married for how many years?
So it was a lot of years. It was, sure. I don't know.
I mean, this man was, he wasn't just your husband. He was your life partner. He was the father of your children. I mean, this is a real Yeah,
there was friendship, there was fun. And I think what there was too, which I've kind of picked up on, I think, there was closeness, but not intrusion in a way. There was space, but not distance. He had enough sense of personal security, with Les, to be able to say, go out there. I mean, when I started traveling the world, it was the groups that I was working with were CEOs who then were mainly men. You had to have a hell of a sense of security to let you out. And I was younger and perhaps a little bit prettier, then with all of these high profile, high flying guys who were all around me and all of that. And he would just, it was more, how was it? Was it exciting? Call me when the group is finished. And maybe that's the thing, Gareth, you want to know the personal effect. Maybe that's the thing that I miss most now. Let's take this show, for example. Now, building up for it, excited. It's Gareth. Gareth is a personality, huge personality, over many years. And yeah, when I finish here, there won't be anyone who is on the phone that says, how was it? I can phone people. And they'll say, oh, yeah, you said you were going to be on Gareth. How did it go? I'm not saying I don't have support in my life.
Sure.
But your person, the one who says, I know it's today and I know that it's that time and you were building up for it and there was some anxiety. And how do you think it went? That's the thing. And that's the thing that for me, in a sense, people say, well, it's been 10 years now. How's it been? Is it that part of it? Does it? I live on my own. I've got 2 wonderful dogs who just are fantastic. They are, and they come. Oh, I sound like that. It's like a bag lady, but they come up and so on. So and I've got a huge amount of support in terms of friends, family, a wonderful career. With all of this, with meaningful work, but it's the person. I have a lot of people who have my back, but they're in their own lives. So there's that. So yes, there was one period when they turned 21 and I had this conversation with him. I said, you promised you would be here for your 21st birthday. What the hell did you do? It was too early. And I got cross because he missed that.
Yeah.
He wasn't there.
Yeah.
And he would have been so proud to see them. My daughter's an incredible singer.
Yeah.
And my son is what should I say? He's got more. Well, he's an incredible mensch, sensitive.
Mensch is a hell of a compliment.
Yeah.
So, Dori, just to relate this to other people too, because there are many people who'll be listening now who've lost someone, and particularly if they've lost a husband or wife. Have you got any insights into how men and women cope with things differently? Because often if a man dies before the woman, she carries on with her life. She's got all kinds of things, friends and kids and or other people who she has as supports and as people to interact and connect with. Men kind of have to rush to get married again because they don't like being on their own if they've been used to that.
I think that there is some truth in that. I think that you said they don't like being on their own.
Old women are a lot more self-sufficient than old men. Don't you think?
Isn't that like women's nature?
Yeah. What do you say?
Isn't that just like our nature as women? It's the same thing as like when we have children, we just know what to do, and when we lose people, we kind of just know what to do. It's in us.
It's look, first of all, I think that both sides are a little bit maybe, but I think there is truth actually, Gareth. Thinking about it, I think there is truth. I think both sides exaggerate it. When you say men don't like, I think they don't cope. As well. I think coping is like they don't. They don't cope as well. I think that there's too much gender stereotyping on both sides.
Sure.
With it. I think that the truth is that, I mean, if I look at myself and look at other women, maybe we cope, but it doesn't mean that we don't feel it in the same way. I think seemingly out and about and all of that kind of thing.
Probably women feel it more.
But
because they're more in touch with their feelings.
They are, but you know what else they're allowed to do? They're allowed to phone their friend and say, I'm having a bad hair day, come over for a chat. Can you imagine a guy phoning? And now guys bond in different ways. They also have friends, but they bond around activities. These are my golf friends.
Right.
These are my card playing friends. These are we do things together.
Yeah.
Sure.
And some of it is that we watch sport together. And if you want the reaction around sport, sure, then they can hug. They can hug and it's all legitimate.
Yes.
It's all to do with the excitement around it. But they don't give themselves, and it's interesting you talk about this. The suicide rate amongst men is exponentially higher.
Yeah.
The thing I heard, it was quite long ago, 1,500 times higher amongst men than women. And then you say, why? Cowboys don't cry, not in front of their horses anyway. They're supposed to be strong and tough. They have less permission.
I mean, you this is where I get annoyed when I hear people saying there's the patriarchy and men are lording it over women. It's complete nonsense.
There's a book called The Myth of Male Power.
I mean, women and men are equally powerful, and in fact, in many situations in human history, it has only been thanks to the women that we survived.
Sure.
But to credit only one of the sexes with all of the power is just, first of all, it's again an abdication of responsibility. And it's so incurious. It's like, there's so many funny, complex things that are going on between men and women all the time. For people to make it as basic and as black and white as that.
It can't be.
No, can't be, right?
No, I think you're right. And I think that it's actually unfair to men as well, because it puts them in a position where you're saying this is how you're meant to be. You're meant to be in control. You're meant to be strong. You're meant to be powerful. You're not meant to be vulnerable. You're meant to know what to do. And, sometimes, I don't know why today it's kind of coming up with COVID. I was working with doctors during COVID. There were men and women doctors. And part of it was getting them to say, there's that, it's not such a great saying anyway, but there's that little thing, what's the difference between God and a doctor? God doesn't think he's a doctor. But there's the stereotype that we've got to know everything. And they were flung into these situations where very often, they were, you had to get them to admit we have no idea what to do. And we're not allowed to not know what to do. We, the doctor, right? We've got to be in control. And sometimes that's true in general with men as well. We have to know. We've got to not.
You just made me
and
think
we can't ask for support or help.
You made me think of something.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Lebang, I haven't even given you a chance to ask things. I'm sure you've
Right?
got lots to ask. Kind of steamrolled right past. Dr. D is inspiring to so many people. You've helped so many people. You've counseled and treated so many people, and given them advice and inspiration. Who inspires you though? Because you have to get that from somewhere. It has to be an engine that helps you create that.
It's sort of so predictable. Everybody, you ask the question of, there's just no leadership in the world today.
Yeah.
Or if there is, it's the leadership that we don't want to have.
Yeah.
Who do you think were the great leaders? And it is predictable. Everybody goes back to Mandela. And why do they say it so many times? It's because of the characteristics. It's the respect. It's the humanity. It's the inclusion. It's even a degree to an extent of vulnerability. It was a feeling of, some of it was quite strategic in what he did, but it was the feeling of it's not. There's once again using the word of authenticity. So no, okay, let me just go back. So I did value that, and he had the way of making people feel that they were the only one in the room or whatever. But sort of what inspires me, what really inspires me now, I think I get inspired by the feedback from the people that I work with. So, I got a little note yesterday that was just amazing. If I could, and I'm fortunate to have quite a few of these letters and notes of how they leave differently, how they come in one way and how they leave differently. And many are able to say how they leave differently. And when I hear that, it's not a mistake that giving is related to happiness.
Yeah.
It's very much related to happiness. And it's not only related to happiness because of what you're doing for the other person. It's how you feel about yourself.
Sure.
So, I remember when I used to stand up at these NGOs or charity events or whatever, and say, hi, everybody, this is an opportunity to feel good about yourself. It's not an opportunity always to give to other people. You know, if you're making a difference, and especially it's sort of fairly soon and fairly immediate in certain things, not in everything that I do, where you can see it and people let you know that this has been meaningful to them. And then I think that the idea of feeling of value and of being the difference that makes a difference is the thing I often think, Gareth, especially before these big groups and things that have long agendas and 2-day retreats. Just done an amazing one, by the way, called, you have to know, it's called Intentional Wild Women.
Ooh.
Step into your authentic self.
Ooh.
And it was for women who essentially have been reared to be nurturers and caregivers, which is wonderful. You don't want to mess with that. But who tend to not be in touch with their own needs, divorced from their instinctual nature. They function with good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, mustn't, can, cannot. Instead of what am I really hungry for? What is in my bones? You know, what am I really hungry for? How can I get in touch for that? But let me not go off.
So what do you?
That sounds like
what do you women all get together like a drum circle or something? What nonsense is this?
We sing kumbaya, all of those good things.
So yeah, and actually, so there's a little part of it like that. There is a little part of it like that. But you know, it's the meaning of these kinds of interactions, not only with me, but perhaps as just as a little bit as a spark, can be the spark or the facilitator, and then see what happens. And when I see that maybe there's value in it, it's inspirational. So who inspires me? I suppose who I worked with yesterday.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Recent.
Yeah.
And do you feel like there are role models anymore? Because you mentioned just now when you said there are no leaders and people are very down about the state of leadership in the world, and we kind of harken back to great leaders of the past, but at that time they probably thought those leaders were rubbish. So who can, and we can't help it as humans, we look for patterns and we try to envision our own existence in the form of a pattern. We see other people and we model ourselves in them.
Yeah, I find that to be quite a difficult question to come up with. I mean, when I speak that question or think about it, it's amazing how many people say, well, it's my grandmother.
Yeah.
You know, or they look at people more in their inner circle. We're hard pressed.
Okay, so then if it's not role models, what were the characteristics of people who you think are aspirational and who we should want to be like and who we should want to learn from? You said authenticity just now. I think that's a good one.
I think, authenticity. I also think that, you know, so often, I mean, you think of all of the things that we deal with every day, and I had a conversation within my own family, you know, where someone was cross with someone else and all of this. And I just think, you know, honestly, you know, I'm looking at this.
These
Life
people
is
who
too
have,
short
people
for
have
this.
rebels.
For rebels is the word. Okay.
Why? Yeah.
Too much pride causes too much pain, Gareth.
Sure.
You know what? It's never more important to win than to be happy. Never. And I think that people just will not step down because of pride. You are come to me first, whereas inside they're both unhappy. Sometimes they even forget the original thing. This has gone on and then it gets passed on to the kids who don't know who to support. You know, that kind of thing.
And then the poor kids are just inheriting.
And then they're inheriting all of this. And so, yeah, what do I think? What are the characteristics? Authenticity. I think humility, but not meaning humility as being sort of, you know, necessarily like a humble person. But I mean being able to say, you know, I'm sorry.
I was wrong.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I messed up.
Yeah.
You know, people respect that. And I think that it's a great thing for parents to, you know, kids learn in 3 main ways. Example, example, and example. So you have to be the change you wish to see in the world, as Gandhi said.
That's it.
You know, you want to turn out people who you admire, be that. And what do they really look like? So, you know, I mean, there are many ways of issues clearing. There are many ways of insight and recognizing, wow, this is just the story I tell myself about it. It might have nothing to do with fact at all.
And the way human beings interact with each other inevitably leads to conflict. And we see a lot of that in this country. There are a lot of traumatized people in South Africa, right? There are lots and lots of people who probably, if they could, would be in therapy, but they probably don't know about it and or can't afford it.
Sure.
And we should have free therapy in this country. We should have far more social workers than we do. Those people are very special, but they're hard to come by.
Look, you say, what are the things? Interestingly enough, and this platform very well, because the founder of this platform, there's a platform called Lockdown University.
Yes.
That started in COVID. And funnily enough, interestingly enough, I'm presenting on that platform tonight. And the person that I am interviewing tonight is Rory Stan, who was Nelson Mandela's chief bodyguard.
Right.
And the interesting part of it, it's fascinating looking at who Nelson Mandela was and the characteristics that he had and how he understood that forgiveness to freedom. Forgiveness begets freedom, and it's a worthy journey, and that there was there was such benefit in that kind of forgiveness of the obvious. But as well as that was Rory Stain's own journey, and what made for the change from hatred to reconciliation. And when he started, he was a staunch pro-apartheid. That was how he was brought up, without any kind of doubt. There wasn't even, is this right? Is this wrong? Of course it's right. It's in my DNA. This is what I saw around me. This is the beliefs, must be based on facts that I have about other people. And then you witness the change and the opportunity for the change, because come in, let me embrace you. Let me encompass you into my world and see something different. So there had to be that little bit of invitation in the beginning. And then what was the thing that made for change? The respect. That's a leader. Respect of me. Before that, it was, I'm an employee, step back.
Sure.
I'm an employee, I don't have many rights here. I serve you. The inclusion, the recognition, the curiosity of, tell me a little bit about your life. Tell me about your family or whatever. The interest, and what does that do? That says, gee, I must be an important person worthy of recognition, maybe not only from a leader, but from another human being. So what are the qualities of leadership? We used to call all of these things soft skills, and they were last on the budget in corporations.
People didn't spend money on them.
Now what's happening, in fact, as also, again, after the pandemic, people are recognizing that people who feel good about themselves produce good results. If you have a culture of connection and inclusion in your organization, you're probably going to do better. And so people are saying, how can we create that inside our organization? So for me, these are the kind of leadership traits. But, you ask for, your highlights, there are certain things. even in radio, especially in radio and in other things. Shows that I remember. I remember the one talking about forgiveness, on forgiveness, 3 hours.
Yeah.
We did then. 3 hours, 3 guests.
Sure.
Adrian Flock, the only minister who went to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and why. On that same show, Marika de Klerk, past wife of F.W. de Klerk, who said, I don't want to get too personal, Dr. D, and then proceeded to get very personal. And he had recently got remarried before.
That's right.
And her turning to her faith to kind of guide her through this, how she was still in a way very much support. She hadn't moved much from her original beliefs. It was fascinating. The third interview that I did on that same show was Amy Beale's parents. Amy Beale, the American field scholar who got killed by in the wake of the Chris Hani funeral. The absolute outrage, the devastation that had no way of expression of the people who took to the street when Chris Hani was killed, and she was in the way, and it came from America, and she got killed. And how they said, look, I mean, we also get, these were parents. We get what was going on, and that's why she was here. She was here because she got what was going on, and they granted amnesty, and how they spoke about it. I mean, that show stimulated my relationship that lasted till the end of his life with F.W. de Klerk.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I made a speech for him at his 85th birthday party.
Amazing.
Because they called me afterwards, you know, him and his wife, and it was to do with her funeral, and they wanted to talk about who, Elita, they wanted to talk about who should go, whether any of her family should attend to. I said, well, that's a personal decision. There were many opportunities. We didn't even realize the magnitude of the opportunities that we had in at 702. Sure.
Dr. D, please can I invite you to my show? Because this is like a wealth of knowledge that I am seeing and just feeling, and I'm so inspired by just all the stories that you're
I
sharing.
think you'll have to, because then you'll finally be able to ask her
Then I'll
something.
finally be able to ask you something as well. So maybe we just hop onto Life with Lebang in the coming weeks, and then we just chat.
It would be an honor. I really would love to.
I'd love
I'd love to
That
too.
would be amazing.
I'd love to.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
done.
It would be an honor.
Thank you.
Well, listen, it's always lovely to see you, and thank you for coming in to talk to us. Lots of comments here about how great it is to have you on. People talking about the things that you've said that are just like they strike a chord. You know, comes from experience. This is not stuff that it's so natural for you to talk like this now.
Sure. Well, I think there's personal vulnerability that I'm very comfortable with now. I don't feel like that anymore. It's also my relationship with you, Gareth. You know, we go back a long time, and I feel it. I don't know if you do. I feel very easy with you.
Yeah,
you know, that it sort of just flows. And all of the people who've I've been so privileged to have met and who've influenced me. So yeah, thank you.
What a pleasure to have you here, and we'll get you on Lebang's show now.
Yeah.
So you got to find time and
great.
got to find time in Dori's busy schedule.
Now, what time is your show?
It's every Wednesday from 9 to 10. So check your diary now so that we can lock you in.
Great. I'm holding you to that.
Nine is a bit easier than 7 o'clock.
Yes. You'll find the Uber.
I feel like I've got a whole day in front of me now. That's great. Thank you.
Dori, thanks so much. Lovely to see you. Dr. D, everybody.